Hey everybody, I am Cinnamon Cooney, your art Sherpa, and today I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know to create this really fun yet beginner friendly painting of the tropics with a waterfall and a few fireflies yourself at home. On the mic is my husband John.
Hi guys.
He helps me do that by tracking me with a bunch of the robotic cameras that we have. And he also, wherever he can, tries to get your questions during the live. Now, if you have a question during the live stream, put your question all in caps. Either my moderators will know the answer or possibly I might answer your question on the show. And you never know, sometimes I go through and read those and answer them in the comments after the show. So we do try to make this a very interactive free art class online. And I think you guys are going to love it. Are you guys ready to do this painting? Because I'm ready to do this painting.
All right.
All right, so when I made this, what I was really looking at is I wanted something that was a waterfall, was really gorgeous, did a lot of things that new painters want to do, but did it in a way that's a little bit easier if you're really, really new to art. So the shortness of the waterfall, the grass, the shape, the kind of, I like to call them personality palm trees. That way, if your palm tree has a lot of personality, you'll be like, hey, it's a personality palm. You can't say anything about it. And then, of course, a really nice stacked sky, which is like an ombre, and it's easier to do than you might think. I'm ready to hop on it.
Okay.
So right here, I have a 10 by 10 stretched canvas. I often paint on boards or other surfaces. You just want something that's suitable for acrylic paint. It can help to do this painting in a square, but you could do a smaller square or a bigger square. It's just the same proportions. Now, we like to put wishes very much on our surfaces to like get that positive energy out to the community. And so today we have a love bomb for Patty. She's looking for healing and relief. Also, we are looking to see like changes in healing from cancer for Jennifer's mom and Nancy's BFF. Also, Lisa Davies. There's just, gosh, I'd like to see that illness just go away forever and ever. Tina's Wells is wishing for strength for a loss for her whole family. And we are just wishing that you have a successful video. All right. So over here, I have some acrylic paint colors. You can make little adjustments, and I often include exchanges in the description below. There is Quinacridone Magenta. We have Cad Yellow Medium, Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green, Yellow Ochre, Mars Black, Burnt Sienna, and a little Titanium White. I do have here this product. This is acrylic glazing liquid gloss, and I really love it. It slows down the drying time of my paint, and it lets me do little glazy bits, so it's really helpful on both sides. It's just this company, this brand, this product, though. Other products are not the same thing. And over here, I want to talk about the brushes, I guess, against my little surface here. So I've got my dotting tool for stars. I've got my liner here. This is the monogram liner to do the little fine lines on the stars and the signature. A number 4 cat's tongue from the TheArtSherpa line. A number 4 fan, also from my TheArtSherpa line. A number 4 round. And then if it's not blending beautifully, my favorite blender, the Ultimate Varnish. Not 1-inch brush, but it's really just a synthetic mop. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of blend in the watercolor words. Oh, I forgot one brush.
You did?
The number 26 bright. It's just a short handle bright. I just needed something big to do the blending in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my brush a little bit wet and go ahead and let these watercolor words become part of our story, part of our canvas. Just brushing those back and forth. If you do wishes, be sure to use products like chalk or watercolor and use colors that aren't going to come up and impact negatively your painting later. Now, with this brush, I'm going to kind of get it wet, drag off the extra, right? So it's nice and primed. And I'm going to take a little bit of this yellow. You can kind of see how I come and get it with the corner of this brush over to my pink. And I work a little bit of that yellow in there because it warms the pink, right? The sun, as if the sun is maybe shining in there. And then when I have a nice mix of that, I'll wipe off the extra pigment. I'm going to put that into my white. See how we're doing? If you need a little more yellow, you can come get it now. This is what's called loosely mixed. And I'm going to come up, let's see if we can get an exact measurement. That's always helpful, right? Exact measurements are always helpful when we're duplicating these things at home. 6 inches from the bottom. That's where my sky is going to start, is right there at the 6-inch mark. Wasn't that helpful?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to take this away because I want to paint over it again, and you know I will, as I'll get excited in there and start painting right over that. I'm going to come back and forth on the edge of my brush at first, and then you're going to see me do a thing. I'm going to dip just a small portion of my brush in the water. I don't want to do too much, and I'm going to brush back and forth that loosely mixed pink color with the quinacridone, the white, and a touch of yellow. Look at that beautiful loosely mixed pink color. And that's actually going on just about perfectly. Got that really great sort of streak and sunset, and that's all about just not mixing these colors so particularly here. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, so you're not over mixing them.
So we're not over mixing. Now I'm going to get a little more of my magenta out and just a smidge of my white. So it's quite a bright pink. And I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to very softly kind of brush these back. See how I brush it into this color below it?
Yeah.
That works because both paints are still wet. And I'm just brushing this, and I'm making that little seam, and then I'll come here and make a nice little band of that brighter pink. That's a great band of brighter pink, isn't it? Now, if you're having trouble with the transitions, you can use something we call the 2-brush method to blend. That's when the paint is still wet and you take a soft, dry brush, look at that, to smooth the transition. Doesn't that do a beautiful job?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people feel like acrylic paint won't do this, but it will. You just need to know the little tricks that make it be happy. Put this aside and get the extra water out of it. Just enjoying those little blends. You can always come back over. It's just about smoothing those edges. Now, while this is still wet, I'm going to really rinse my brush out of all the pink pigment. And this is still wet here. And I'm going to come take this over to my phthalo blue, and I'm going to make a very light blue. See how light that is?
Yeah.
And we're going to come right here and into the wet pink, which is going to make a purple, as you guys can see. And then even as you bring it up, it'll get up in there. Look at that crazy fun sky we pretty easily created.
Yeah, that's really amazing how that just came together.
It's just really fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really like it very, very much. Now, for the next part, I like it to be a little bit dry before I put the little splash of sunlight right here.
Mm-hmm.
So at this moment, I can do a couple of really fun things. I can plan my waterfall, and I can plan my rocks. Now, my waterfall is going to be pretty easy. We're going to take a little bit of black and a little bit of blue together, and I'm going to come right here in the middle, come across, and I'm going to pull this color down, straight down.
Oh, yeah.
Straight down. And this is going to be the shadow that helps our waterfall really, really show.
Now, if I remember, the trick to lakes and streams and oceans is horizontal.
Right. And the trick to waterfalls is vertical.
Right. Because water doesn't move in an arc.
And the other thing you want is to make sure that the top of your waterfall is super level. Right?
It does, but if you draw if you paint your waterfall in at an angle, it ends up driving you crazy because you think
it does. What looks like the water is not applying to gravity anymore.
Right.
So I just added a little bit more blue because I wanted it to be like pretty deep.
Yeah.
Now the first layer I can do right now while this paint is still wet, and I'm going to get my fan. Okay. I'm going to just get some white paint onto my fan. It's okay if a little blue gets into it over here. You can see the little fan here. And I'm going to just pull that down.
Now, for everyone who's watching, this is Cinnamon's fan, and it's much stiffer than most fans. So if you're not experiencing this result with your fan brush, it may very well be the brush and not you.
It's probably the brush and not you.
That that brush has super stiff filament. So that's why if you don't get that particular effect, it's probably that brush is really good at doing that.
Yeah. Now in this painting, you could do that with the bright and try to get that same streaking. The fan just does great work for things like fronds and like grasses and waterfalls and little bits of smoke. But this, because it's so stiff.
Yes.
And I'm sure some of the more experienced painters who've been painting with me for a while, because everybody goes out and buys an inexpensive other fan. We've had some pictures in group where somebody had 20 or 30 inexpensive other fans, all of which do what I call the 4 fingers of death.
Yes, they do. They clump, 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 clump.
As soon as they get wet, because they're not really designed to be in water, and even bristles can sometimes over soften and make it problematic. So John's correct. It's definitely the brush, not you. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is get my brush and water and drag off the extra. I'm gonna take my black and a little bit of brown, and it's loosely mixed, as you can see. And I'm gonna go ahead and come here and create this space. And you can actually have this be painted pretty rough because these are rocks. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my surface to the side right now because that's going to make it a little easier to work with. You can paint around the edges of your surface to finish it. A lot of people do that, and it's a good practice to get into. I'm teaching today, so I'm going to kind of just hustle along. But if you want to come around and like bend those paint colors around those edges, that's an okay thing to do. What I'm trying to do is just make sure that I've got a nice brush stroke that I can work off of my surface. See how we do? It's just very chunky and loose. As long as it's a dark color, it will do quite well. I'm going to make sure I have a lot of black in here. And I'm going to make sure that I have a lot of coverage. If you're painting very inexpensive paint, you know, maybe Amazon told you about a deal. You may be having some trouble with coverage. No, that's normal. That's not you. Student paint can need a couple coats. Now, once I have this very interesting and completely level space, I'm going to do a fun thing. I'm going to come right here and I'm going to take my brush. And I'm going to just come up and make a little hill. Like you do. Little hill. It's just the beginning of a bump. It's something for the grass to grow in. As grass will want to do, right? Grass wants to grow. And if you give yourself a place for the grass to start growing, it will be a much happier little bunch of grass. Oh, that's nice. Now, all this is having a dry. You can go ahead and take your cat's tongue. That's this one here in the number 4. If you don't have this, you could use a filbert or you could just use your round. You'll be okay with any of these. I'm going to get it just a little bit wet. I'm going to go ahead and add some yellow to the brush, the smallest amount of the magenta so that there's a pop of orange that comes in, and some white. See how we're doing? And we're going to come here, and right at the top of this, we're going to stroke back and forth on the toe of the brush, and it's going to be whiter here, and the little strokes will get more diminished as we go up. This is like this little focus part of where the sunset is happening. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And then come right here. And that is the main part of that. And I just really like that. I'm glad I had done that in the original painting. Glad to be sharing that with you here. I'm going to go ahead and get some white. A little yellow, but mostly white. And just make sure that there's a little of that right there. See how we're tapping that? Just dancing on the toe of our brush back and forth. That's all we had to do. Now for the next part, everything here needs to be dry. One of the things in acrylic painting is knowing when to leave things wet and knowing when to dry things. So if you've been painting and you've been getting frustrating results, one of the things that may be messing you up that's a really easy fix is knowing when you've got to keep things wet, like when you're blending and knowing when you got to keep things dry, like when you're layering objects over other objects. So hopefully that'll be something helpful you can carry forward into other paintings. I'm going to go ahead and dry this.
All right. So while she's drying that, I'll tell you guys, don't use heat. I think if you've been here a minute, you've probably heard me talk about that. Because it's color shift, we cover that a lot. It's how paint will lighten, especially dark paints or student paints, when you use heat. So try not to use heat. And a note on, let's see here, framing. Acrylic paintings are really tough. So you shouldn't need to put them behind glass or anything like that. You can. That's a complicated frame job, but yeah.
What's a complicated frame job? Framing
behind acrylic behind glass.
You do that if you're doing on paper or on a canvas board, but you have to have a mat or two to make sure that there's air for the painting between it and the glass. Otherwise, it will merge into the glass.
Yes, it will become. Yeah. So
Never.
But unless you have a real reason to put it behind like that,
it's not even necessary. It's a plastic polymer. It's a polymer emulsion with pigment in it. We don't know how long acrylic is going to last yet because it's kind of new, but I suspect, like those cave paintings in France, it's going to be around a minute.
You know what you're going to do? You're going to give some college student a job someday to restore your painting. So you just maybe. Paint with what you're going to paint with and let them worry about.
We'll see. We'll see.
I mean, for everyone else out there in the world too. Like, you just paint away. Let the college students someday who have to restore your painting worry about what you're painting with.
So I'm going to show you a couple things about grass. I'm going to show you with this brush, and I'm going to show you this brush. It's really pretty fun and easy to do grass. We're going to start with this number 4 cat's tongue, and we're going to get a little bit of our green really loaded in there. You see how I pull it out and flip the brush to really get that paint in there? Right? I might smidge a little yellow. And I'm going to begin the process of painting our grassy knoll.
That's a tropical hill.
Tropical hill.
Tropical hill.
So one of the things I'm going to do is I come up here, I'm going to begin to pull up some of these brush strokes, and you can see that the brush's filaments begin to pull apart, creating that first layer, that sense of grass.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to just kind of pull this down because in our painting, in our world, these grasses are falling forward and also down the hill. Let's get those down the hill. See how we're brushing those down? The curved stroke. I'm going to brush those down. Notice that I just let this be rough. That's going to help me later when I put on those highlights that really define those shapes. To get a little more paint on here. If you ever need it to be darker, you can add that burnt sienna to it. And you'll notice here that when I come back here, it's a little bit darker and its coverage is a little bit better. If you're painting student paint, where you might have trouble is between this dark line and this pink line. So you might need to do a couple colors, or you might need to get a little bit of your brown into your green and come here to deepen it. See, because phthalo green is a bit transparent. So that's where you have trouble. I'm painting professional paint. It has the most pigment I could have in the paint, and it can still play against the transparency, so I have to keep working that. That's a good thing to know. I'm going to go ahead and get some more green. That smidge of the yellow. And let's come down and make sure we have some nice grass on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Look at those grasses coming down. The other thing that the grasses that are falling down, see it's a curve on the stroke?
Yep.
But they're not all the same length. I don't make a little row of them like that. Like if I pressed hard and just made them regimented, I would get that. Can you zoom in on that?
I think I can.
Thank you, baby. See how there's a difference between this right here where we let some of them be short and some of them be long, but if I pressed hard and just made lines,
oh yeah,
wouldn't look the same. So you definitely want to keep it on the toe of your brush to get those grasses going. Let's come here. I'm going to load this up. Getting some of my first layers of wonderful little grass going. Dip in water if you need to. Just catch those first bits going. Now you can come and get a little bit of black and green together. And here at the back side, let's make these bits of grass real dark. Can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Just here at this corner. Back side here too. That'll improve that coverage in that corner until we get into the yellows and whites and other things that help our green cover better. And just remember, if that's an area you're having frustration, that is normal for the student paint. I'm going to rinse out really well so that there's no pigment in the brush. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to get to do the fun parts. So now I get to have a lot more yellow in my brush, in my green. You see that makes a bright color, but I'm still very loosely mixed. And I can come here on the toe of my brush and I'm curving little strokes. See how they're curving over and dropping? The hardest part of the press is at the beginning and then I'm releasing. A little bit here at this side. I don't have to bring it too far back into where I have shadow. Come over here, same thing. A little bit here at the forward face towards the waterfall. I'm doing a thing called rolling off. That's where I get the extra paint off of my brush if it's going too far up. And I'm going to begin to pull this kind of brighter grass forward. And you can see I'm just on the little toe of my brush. Come here and do a similar thing. Fun to do. So through here, you know, you kind of interweave. You want to interweave those brush strokes and make sure that you have, you know, a nice flow. And some of the grasses need to be longer and some of them need to be shorter. Now the next bit of grass, so fun is the next bit of grass. Right? You're going to take a lot of your yellow and a little of your green and some of your white. There's sun right here. And there's these wonderful fireflies that are coming up. So we need to make sure that the things that are kind of in that path of sunlight are a little bit lighter. Look at that. Also right here. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
A little bit lighter in the path of sunlight. If you need a little more yellow or a little more white, you can get that. Pick up those bright colors right here that are glowing in the sun. Catching that sunlight. Catching that wonderful glow. Rinsing out really, 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 really well. The trees. So trees are challenging. I'm going to break them down into segments, into areas so you can digest them in smaller bites. But what I want you to know is that most of the challenge between you and a tree is really kind of emotional because you have such an emotional connection to trees. Even if you didn't think you were one of the people who connected to trees, when you start painting, you suddenly realize you are one of those people because you have a lot of feelings and opinions about what your tree should and should not be. So we're going to try to release that opinion of what it should and shouldn't be. And we're going to set the goal of painting, one, better than you probably came into this painting expecting that you can. And two, that you're going to find something within the tree that you're doing well and try not to focus on the things that you're afraid of that you think you might not be doing well. Now, the first tree is going to come to right about here. Its center point in the canvas is right about there. So I'm going to take chalk. Right? So that's where my palm will start. And to start there, I'm going to need to curve a trunk down like that. You can see how that kind of came over to the side. He comes through the dark grass and he curves right about there. Now he's got a friend. It's one of those palms that's seen a lot of wind and a lot of stuff going on. And that palm is a little bit forward. This palm is a little bit further behind this one. And it's going to come forward right about to here. You see that? And this little fellow over here, he is kind of almost mirroring or framing it in. So a little bit lower than his friend over on the left. It's going to be right there.
Yep.
This is just kids chalk, guys. It's not a really wonderful special art material, except kids chalk is amazing because it helps kids get creative, but it's not something that's pricey or hard to get. All right, I'm going to get my brush wet, and I'm going to really start out with my black paint. Let's load up with our black paint at first. These trunks come actually all the way from the bottom, and they curve to the top. When I want to thin my line, I do that by pressing lighter. Now, in the web page for this video, I've included a whole instructional. If you've never, ever painted with acrylic before and you need to know all the things are there. We wanted to make sure you guys had all the things, so they're all there. Very dark little trunk. Want to make sure that it's thicker at the bottom and gets thinner as it comes up. But it also needs to look like it's capable of holding up the fronds that are attached to it. I find it's easier to thicken rather than thin, so I go more tentatively, more cautiously, and then thicken as I'm going. I can always add. It's much more challenging to take away. Am I in the film way, babe, today? Oh, thank you.
Everything's great.
Oh, wonderful. I'm dipping in water, just the toe. I'm loading up more black paint. I'm going to plant it right here, and I'm going to just bring that down. You can see as I come down, I just press harder. That's a good way of thickening the trunk. Pressing light at the beginning, and then as you come down, you can press harder. It can be really challenging as a new artist to regulate the amount of pressure that you're using when you are painting on a canvas. I'm going to keep getting some black on here, and I'm going to begin some interesting little frond journey, okay? So for sure, I've got a little frond that comes over here. Yeah, I'm going to go up and back. And I may come and just do this. See how I'm doing that? Because this is just being the magic brush today, so I think I may hang in with my magic brush. That's a nice little palm leaf, I feel. This is all in black at this stage. Now, there's a little friend maybe coming like right there, catching some sunlight, taking care of its little tree. You want rough edges on these palm fronds. See how I'm making rough edges?
Yeah.
Go out here. Now this one maybe has got a little bit of rough out that way. It's kind of foreshortened and going away from it, so I can make it sort of short and sticky up like that. Let's also give ourselves another little short and sticky up little friend that he has. Coming around here. Always fun to do. Now, I feel like that can be like a little bit too uniform, so I always like to try to rough these up just a bit. Because these leaves get torn by the wind, they go through a lot. Little bend here, and then pull down, and the brush is doing the work. The other brush is doing the work. Now one frond can be coming straight down here. Dip in water if you're having any trouble getting the paint flow. On the toe, very lightly. And then pulling off. Look at that. Maybe another little droopy leaf coming here in front of the friend. We're doing pretty good there. That's a nice little beginning. I feel like we've got nice room for these leaves to go. So what I can do right now is rinse out. And I think I'm going to do this leaves right now. Every once in a while when you're painting, you want to rinse out your brush. And the reason why is that the acrylic paint can dry on the brush and mess with how easy it is to paint. Yeah, we did that fun little frond. If I wanted to
Could you use the fan brush to do these
Would
fronds?
you like me to demo a fan brush frond?
Could you do that?
I would love to do that. Fans make fabulous fronds.
Do they?
So on this size canvas, I wouldn't go bigger than a 4. It would be really challenging. I'm going to load up my fan. When I want to make a line, I come on the edge of the fan. This is going to be like magic. You're going to be like, wait, that looks so easy. It just wants to make those strokes. See how it does?
Yep.
It wants to do fan things. It wants to feel like a fan and be a fan. And so you don't work as hard for those little rough edges. Those little rough edges kind of find you. You can do a whole palm tree in a fan. Let me put out a little more black paint. I'm sitting there for some reason being like really meager with my black paint, even though I have tons of it that I could use. Nope. Yes. We could have a little frond coming out that way. And you can see it does that style, which is kind of really lovely. Some people will not even do a palm tree unless they have a fan in their art bucket.
Wow.
Everyone thinks of the pine trees, but fans are actually just totally made for palm fronds. There's that one. Because it wants to make those uneven little brush strokes. That's what it wants to do. It says, oh, goodness, let me do that for you. And I'll say, well, if you insist. You can see I'm just pulling that out and letting the fan do its thing. If I want to be more specific, I can get on the edge and rough up that frond. You guys enjoying your little fan demo?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's bring one down here. Make sure I've got enough water on there to have flow off my fan. Some of the fan will be coming in on this side. You see how that's doing? And then some will come out on this side. There we go. Doing well, having fun. I feel like I still maybe want one more frond on here. So I may put one right here, just to fill it out. There we go. So you just have to kind of decide, do I like, you know, this fan or this fan? Like, it's really up to you. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to work on the trunk and some things we're going to talk about. The inside of the trunk, right? Let's start with a little bit of the yellow ochre and this brown. That's what needs to be highlighted. I'm going to come just right here. And I'm going to bring this in, kind of highlighting that inside edge. You can even catch this one while we're here. You can come in and just sort of highlight that inside edge, dragging that across. Now, once I have that drug across, I'll go ahead and get my black, and I'm going to come up the other side and make sure that I'm blending in the dark side of the bark. You guys see how that was done?
Yeah.
Everybody feel confident with that. Let's get some more of that brown and yellow ochre. brushing in. This is the highlight. This is where the sun is hitting the palm. If you need a little, you come back and come back up with the shadow color, blending back in. See how we do? Interweaving those two colors, kind of creating that rounded trunk. Now on here, I'm going to go ahead and get some of my green. At first, I think it's nice to get a little of my burnt sienna, my green in there. I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to begin this little first pass of color onto my fronds. Can you see that? A little green and a little brown. Coming right over the black. This is the first little pass of color. So yes, it's a silhouette, but because we're online, we don't have to just leave it a silhouette. We can make it something extra special. That's right now, that's the brown and the green. Do that same over here. I'm getting a little brown, a little green. Loosely mixed on my palette. And always give yourself a little bit of little edge there. And you want a bit of that green to show kind of transparently through, because there's going to be like light that we're implying that's backlighting your palm frond. How are you guys doing? Green and brown.
Very good.
I asked John that. Really, John is the emissary of that, and it's like he's busy like trying to make sure the stream is good.
Well, sometimes
But I'm really just trying to talk to you guys at home. I'm not trying to put John on the spot.
Oh no, you're doing great. Like today, I'm really able to do a pretty good job keeping up with chat and what we have going on.
Making sure that center is solid. When I rinse that out, I'm going to rinse that out really, really well. If your water is very dirty like this, you see this right here?
Yeah.
Let's change it. Let's take a minute and change it. Because those kind of things can muddy up your colors. Now, let's add some highlights. So the highlights are going to be your green, and it's real similar to what we had going with the grass. Real similar. There's a couple kind of surprise things that we'll do. And one of the surprise things is, I think at this stage I want to actually do it. I'm going to take a little bit of my magenta and my yellow, and I make a distinctive orange. You see that distinctive orange? I'm going to come here and on a couple key places on the fronds, look at that. I'm going to pop a little bit of that orange. See, not everywhere. Key places. Maybe a little bit here on the underside here. On this inside, a little bit under here, because we're talking about the way the light might catch this tree and the bits of frond it might light up. See how that might go?
Yeah.
Let's come in here and let's also, warm our trunk a little bit. Let's give it a couple of places, and maybe warm right here. And come right there and warm a little bit up. Not all of it, just a little bit. It's just a little bit of warming it up. If it gets away from you, I'll show you how to fix that. There you go, just a few pieces. Look at that. You don't want to make a ladder. You want to kind of keep it just a little bit random. I have a little bit right there, huh? I would definitely have a little bit right here, because the sunlight would be catching it. Might smidge here and just a hair on that edge. Take a little of our yellow and come over to our green. So not quite yet the brightest green that we can make like we did in the grass, but certainly something that's going to show up. A little darker than that. So just pulling that down there. See that? Come in here. That wonderful little frond. Your frond is no fraud. I'm going to come on this side right here, just on the edge of my brush. I'm pulling it down, and I'm letting a little of that bright color peek out.
You would move some of your green mix down just on the bottom where I couldn't see it. So
okay. So I'll do it right here. So
I adjusted.
Let's do it right
That's
here.
okay.
Oh, okay.
I
don't mind adjusting. I'm for you guys.
Well, no, it's also color commentary for the audience, because I know they're like, wait, I didn't see what you were doing, and so I'm telling you at the same time I'm sort of telling them that I saw that you didn't see that, so I'm going to move the camera.
You're so considerate, and that really helps these classes work. Let's come here and add some little kisses of green. I'm not repainting the whole leaf. You shouldn't be repainting the whole leaf. It's just kind of a kiss of color, because you really want this to feel like a dark silhouette, don't we? If it's backlit, it's going to be in a silhouette. We can just do better, though, than just a plain old silhouette. A kiss of that green right here, I think. Oh, what a fun thing. Now I'm going to come get a little brown. I've got everything going. And I'm going to make sure that I've got some nice stuff working on my trunk. If I got a little bit too orange, I would come back and then I would mix my black and brown together. And I would just come back and paint that diminished. See how we diminished it? So what you're really going to be working is your dark shadow will be here on the left side of objects, and your highlight will be on those insides, right, where it's facing. So right side, left side, but it's really about that they're facing that sun. Oh, that's nice. Okay, good trunk. Rinsing, rinsing, rinsing. Now, we had some fun highlights, didn't we? So we're going to take a lot of yellow and just a smidge of green. A lot of yellow, though. And some white. Here on the edge of this, let's get some edge of that. And then I think definitely we need a little edge right here. That might end up covered by the other one, but I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to work it out. See how I'm just barely touching it?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that fun? And there's definitely some right here. I'm just kissing with the toe of my brush, creating a little bit of highlight. Really want it right here. Just getting those inside little lips that are seeing the sun. This little fellow needs some sunlight. It's not deep in the frond, it's on these edges. That's what you're highlighting. Just some of the edges. Just to say, oh, I caught some sunlight right here. Did you see? You can also take this color, a little bit of the yellow and white, and you can come to the inside of your trunks very lightly. And highlight them. Isn't that great? Very lightly come on the inside. Don't press hard. You want kind of a thin line. And I like to break my line, which means I don't try to keep it a just completely steady, solid line. Come in here and give this one a little highlight too. See how now that's the sunlight on your trunks?
Yeah.
Important stuff. This little fellow here, he had to be left off till last. And the reason why he did is because he's the foremost facing tree. And these guys are so packed with each other that I just wanted to make sure that he had the room he needed. I'm going to get a little of my black and make sure he now goes in front of his little friend there. See how he just did that?
Yeah.
It became that forward-facing tree. So I'm going to go ahead and just load up some black here, and I'm going to give some fronds. One of these is going to kind of come up and go forward. This one's going to kind of come up and also go forward. And then maybe a little short one. So this is that, you know how palm trees get blown? He's been blown forward. Thicker at that base, like keep that little frond uneven. Your personality palm, he got personality. So I said I thought I might be painting over that.
Yeah.
I was right. That's okay. Good practice to know it would be there. See how we're getting him? Oh, there he goes. Well, he's having a whole little moment. Always grab just a little ochre and a little bit of your burnt sienna and work his little trunk there. Touch up anything you want to touch up. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab a little of that orange, which is the magenta, and a little yellow, right?
Yeah.
A little orange. And we'll put that a couple places at the ends of our little fronds here. Piece them out. If you're doing this in fan, it's all the same thing. So I like to piece the color maybe a little more delicately. That's nice. Rinse out thoroughly. You guys doing good?
Yes.
All right,
I think so.
yeah. We're going to get a little of that green we talked about. A little bit down here. Just those fronds that are in that area. I'm going to do darker green kind of back here. It's still green, but it's just a little bit darker. Now it's darker. Add a little dark color to that, so it could be. And if you have any problems with it, you can always come back with your black and kind of define them from each other. There they are. What do they need now? They need a highlight, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Rinse out thoroughly. Make sure your water's clean enough for a highlight. Same thing. Okay, if it's a little bit of this and some yellow, you just want that. It was the green, yellow green. There we go. With a little bit of white. There we are. Let's get in there and give that a little kiss. Okay. And you really got some sunlight, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because you would be right there catching that on the edge of your leaves. Look at that. So now we've created these really drama silhouette palms. We get to do one more little bit of waterfall if you want. Take your fan, load with some fresh white paint. Mine's a little bit dry, so I'm just going to make sure I got the squishy bit. You can come here and add that dry brushed top reflection of waterfall. Doesn't that just make it go waterfall?
Oh, it does.
It's just my favorite. Now, I do like to make sure that the top of my fall is very, very white. So sometimes I will delicately come up here and just make sure that where it's bending over, I've got some of that and that it's very level. But it's good stuff. In here we talked about a dotting tool and stars. And this is the time we have to do that. I'm going to grab my dotting tool. You could use the back of a detail brush. And to make my life easy, I'm going to use something called fluid paint. But listen, you could get a white craft paint. It's the same consistency. These are both soft body. The difference is this has a ton of pure top grade titanium pigment. And so it's really saturated. It really pops. And if that's important, you may want to get a little bottle of that. If it's not important, go ahead and grab one of these. It's okay. It's for dotting, right? Why do I like to do the stars after? Wait, can I bring my ring over here at some point? A dotting ring? I feel like I did, but then I haven't seen it in a half minute. I guess I don't have it over here. I'm going to get some dotting fluid out. There we go. You can see it's a softer paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dot up some little magic bits. Now I'm going to have a very defined one right there. Maybe another defined one right there. Defined right there, because those are the ones that are going to have circles.
You're just picking up pure titanium white.
Just pure titanium white.
And that's in the fluid paint. So I'm not switching back over every time so it doesn't get so dizzy.
Yeah, don't switch over back time. I'm going to stay in the fluid for a minute till my dots are done. And then I like to make little dot stories that tell that this is climbing. You can also switch sides on the dot to the small tool. And it's good to give your dots varying sizes. They can come up even over the fronds because they're not necessarily stars, are they?
No, these are magic dots.
They are. Little bits of magic. Look at that go. Let's give lots of little dots here. I think it's important to do.
Now see, my family would be all enamored with these dots until the sun went down and they would be having to go back to the house because they left the porch light on or something, but bravery...
Not your mom.
Bravery falls off.
Your mom would get her. Your mom's one of the people who like stays in the haunted house too long.
That's just true.
I keep your mom alive by reminding her that the forces of supernatural powers need to be respected. Especially after dark. All right, so we're going to put in some twinkle stars. I see a great spot for twinkle star right here. What you're going to want to look for is these wonderful open spots in your frond. So I'm going to put one right there. I'm going to go ahead and give myself another twinkle star right here. That could be a great one. And for sure, I need one over here.
Right.
Now, to finish the twinkle, you're going to need a small detail brush, which we had out earlier. I am looking for, oh, there it is. I love this brush. This is a monogram liner. It's a number 1. It just makes a nice, very fine line so that I can come into places like this and go, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. See, we're just twinkling up the star. Do a longer twinkle here. I have to turn it to the side so I can do longer, steadier lines. You guys have seen me use rulers in the past. That also works really, really well. And come right there. And I may come back this way. So I can do a nice, there's a particular direction that I have strength in my stroke. You probably do too. You'll feel as you're painting, you're like, oh man, I can do a better stroke this way, but not a better stroke that way. So wherever it is that you struggle on your stroke. And then when you have those done, I'm going to straighten out that little one right there. A little bit wonky. You can put in the little sidebar twinkles. Because your stars may really, really twinkle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Twinkle them up. Twinkle them up. That's pretty good. Once your twinkles are in, you can come in and put in the rest of your night sky.
Between the leaves.
Between the leaves. Remember, stars can clump and be dispersed and have different size dots. Switch it over to the big size dot. You can see a lot about what I'm doing is about just varying up that dot size.
Mm-hmm.
See a hole right there. Oh, so fun. Now, some of these I really wanted to be glow, and that is going to be my little round brush right here. I'm going to take my yellow, right, and a bit of my white, and I'm going to come around some of these little fellows and make little circular radial strokes. Can you guys see that? The trick is allowing a lot of the background to show through. Put one here. I think that's going to be a good glow. Oh, that's lovely. That's a good glow today. Yellow is transparent, so it just kind of wants to glow as it is and do this. And by pressing a little bit harder, you can see it breaks open my detail brush and allows the filaments to do that sort of. I'm glowing it up. Now, over in the pink, I feel like I'm going to need more white to get it to show. As I come up here, I can even get into that fluid white. That's okay. See how we're doing? Glowing up our glows.
I like the glows.
Glows are an important part of life. Get as many glows as you need. Don't short yourself on glows or sparkles, man.
No.
Don't do it. You see, it's kind of like a really fun little, somewhat messy process, but not that hard once you're used to your tools. The thing that can be challenging for you at this stage is just being used to your tools. Little yellow, little white every once in a while, if it needs it to show over where it's at. Pretty great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last thing. The mist. I'm going to go ahead and put out, as I mentioned, some glazing medium. Get this all up in my brush. Going to help me make the white more transparent. If you have tinting white or zinc white, that works really, really well. Come here and just start this messy mist. Look at that. So here I am, I'm curving my brush backwards and forwards. You can even see me doing a circle scrub. I'm not doing this, but you could see you probably could. You could use a gel medium or gloss medium and varnish or other things for this. You just want to make the white more transparent. Or like I said, some zinc. I like to just use this brush to make this messy, messy space. See how it does?
Mm-hmm.
I'm also not doing that because that would make a pattern. If, and you'll love this, I get too much on there, I can just come right back with a...
Oh, wow. That's actually really nice swirly effect.
Isn't it? So even if it's getting away from you, because you're just trying to create a mist, aren't you? So if you're unhappy with elements of it, you can change it. Never feel trapped in your painting. And then I can just pick little bits to highlight. Because we can just highlight little bits.
Are you gonna? You're doing this little highlights of the fan right now.
Yeah. You could also do this with the cat's tongue. It's just about trying to be random and recognize that it's going to have like... Another good way is you put the handle up and wiggle, catching just the edge of your brush to get random. See how that helps me get my randomness? Look at that. Look at that crazy random I can get. So that's what you're trying to do, is get some crazy randoms. There we go. Little mist, little palms, little all the things. Come here. Sign in the corner.
I really like this one. It turned out really nice.
And I'm just signing the white over the mist because it'll be there, it'll be legible, but it won't like be a distraction to the painting. Let's take a look at that. I'm going to turn around.
Are you?
Okay. Oh, are we happy with that?
Oh, that turned out really nice.
So, areas for you as a new student to be aware of. If you're getting really used to your tools, go ahead and do a practice sheet of paper. If you haven't done the brush stroke before, if you're not really sure how to execute it, take that brush over to like a piece of construction paper, grab some construction paper and add it to your art kit and be like, can I make a scribbly line? Can I make a little scratchy line? Can I make a little grassy line? And work it out there. And then when you're like, yeah, I kind of got it, then pop it on your canvas. But here's my big thing. The best way to improve at painting is to paint and not freak out and not give up and finish and then do the next painting, right? Don't start a painting, love the feeling, get halfway through, freak out, get frustrated, and then quit. And then start another painting. It is okay, I really can't tell you how much, to have an imperfect painting. We all have imperfect paintings. That's not what painting is about. It's perfection. It's about that journey we have in the art. And the growth happens over time, painting after painting. It's why I do acrylic April. Nothing helps you guys get better than doing 20, 30 paints. So, get all the way through, enjoy the techniques, find a couple things that you feel like you did really well, and tell us about what those are. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, and I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.